Welcome to the first ever Fraudcast Podcast, the Claims Investigation Unit podcast, where we take a deep dive into the world of insurance fraud, how to spot it, how to prove it, and ultimately how to prevent it. My name is Scott Clayton, and I have the privilege of leading our Claims Investigation Unit. Rather than the conventional written material, we're going to have a dip into the podcast world to try and bring some life and maybe even some humour into the subject matter. Our intention is to explore a number of topics and invite guests from across the claims community. Our audience will be the judge of whether this is a one-hit wonder or the first episode of many in our Fraudcast series. So in this first episode, we're going to discuss Quantexa. Who and what is Quantexa, and how it is aiming to revolutionise fraud detection at Zurich. We'll break down what Quantexa actually does, how it's powered by AI, and if it will truly make a difference in the world of fraud detection. Joining me today in Birmingham is the Fraud Information Technology Man, or FIT for short. Did you write this? The man behind the action and leading Quantexa project, it's David Clements. David, thanks for joining me today.
Thanks for inviting me, Scott. And I think we both know that I did not write that. At my age, it's more fat than fit these days.
Well, let's leave that there. So let's get straight into it. So David, break it down in simple terms if you can. What exactly is Quantexa and why do we need it?
Okay, so let's talk about Quantexa and why we're excited to be delivering the project this year. We keep things really simple. Let's look at an example, Scott. So I want to imagine that you're making an insurance claim, okay? What sort of insurance claim could Scott Clayton make? Maybe someone's nicked your golf clubs. I can imagine you have some nice expensive clubs, Scott. You like your golf. What's the first thing you do when you make a claim? You obviously call our claims team. You register your claim. And at that point, we're capturing all sorts of information about you, the circumstances of the claim. We've also got information already on Guidewire around the policy itself. And what tools like Quantexa do is they effectively fire off that information to a large database that contains a load of information about all of the policies, all of the claims that we have on our books, millions of policy records, thousands of claims, lots of intelligence. And then we're effectively washing your claim and the information that sits in your claim against all of that data that's out there in the ether. And we're getting what we're doing at that point is we're building the network out. So we're using network analysis to effectively look for the links between all those different bits of data. So your address, Scott, your mobile telephone number, your name, your date of birth. How do they stick to other information that we might already have on other claims, other policies, bits of intelligence, etc.? And at that point, hopefully, if you're not making a fraudulent claim, we get a nice message fired back to Guidewire that says, actually, Scott's claim looks okay. He's not made previous claims before. He's not considered a risk, and that allows our claims handler with some confidence to go ahead and process your claims, and you can get back on the golf course again. But of course, if you were making a rather naughty claim and actually you had a claims record where you'd made similar claims before, or for example, if you were on a piece of industry intelligence to say that you'd been up to no good previously, or if you had a really adverse sort of financial record, in those circumstances, what Quantexa can do is link information pertaining to yourself to that high-risk information and say, actually, no, let's have a look at that claim. Let's get our claims investigation unit to review it and make sure we're comfortable before proceeding with the claim. So effectively what Quantexa does is it provides risk insight in real time based on all of the powerful data that we hold in our systems.
So really powerful technology then.
Oh, absolutely.
And everybody talks about AI. You hear AI all the time and how it's empowering decision making. How does Quantexa use AI and data analytics to identify fraudulent activity?
There's a danger if I talk about the technical side of this, I start losing our listeners. So let's do another example, okay? So Scott Clayton is making a claim. We might have a Scotty Clayton on another policy, right? So how does Quantexa know that this person is either a different person or the same? all these assumptions around how an address is similar but not the same to another, how an individual may be the same identity even though some elements of their information, such as their date of birth, differ, how we can make a decision about what is the same person, what is the same entity, and what's different is done through something called data entity resolution. And that's the first bit of AI that we're delivering here. And this is absolutely around how do we actually stitch the networks together and be sure that the networks we're building are accurate. This is really important because we know data quality isn't perfect. If you look at one of our customers, commercial customers, we might spell them in lots of varieties of different ways. It's really important that we're able to actually differentiate between genuinely different companies, entities, people, and ones that are the same with bad spelling or bad data input. So there's the concept of data entity resolution, and then there's a slightly more interesting concept called network analysis or graph analysis. And what we're doing is, once we've got all of our data into one place, is we're using AI logic to determine how a network is built out. And a network might be something as simple as Scott Clayton has a policy and he has an address and a telephone number that attach to that policy, and it doesn't go further than that. In the extreme examples where we see kind of examples of organized fraud, that network might be vast. It might be across multiple claims, multiple policies, have intelligence stuck to it. And so that graph analysis, it doesn't just create those networks, but it actually visualizes them as well. And the final component here that's really, really important is there is an element of AI in the scoring that goes on. So we get lots and lots of networks, but lots of those networks aren't interesting. So the scoring framework we put across those networks effectively tells us about those networks that we deem to be suspicious. And we have rules at claim level, we have rules at entity level, i.e. looking at the risk associated with an individual or an address or a company. And then we have network level rules that look at, forget the individual claims themselves and their circumstances. If I look at an entire network with lots of claims and policies, what's the risk associated with that network? And when we do that, we get a really clear view around the risk that each claim poses.
And that will take place across multiple lines of business then?
Absolutely. So this will be aimed at motor, retail and commercial, property. And for the first time, very excitingly, we're going to be throwing SME style commercial property data at the solution, but also casualty, ELPL claims as well.
Amazing to join the dots, the bit that the human brain can't do. So from a claims handler's point of view, will they actually get to see the Quantexa system at any point?
I certainly hope so. We've got about 6 months of development left on the project, and I would invite anyone who is particularly interested in this topic just to give us a call. We're very happy to showcase what we've delivered so far. We're delighted that we've actually got an internally hosted dev and UAT environment set up with our own data in it. We're starting to see those patterns. We're starting to work on the scores. So please do get involved. Give us a call. We'll be happy to demo it for you. I think in the future, it's kind of when we deliver immediately, this is largely something at the kind of the front end that Zurich kind of CRU members will have access to, so our fraud team will have access to. But certainly we are considering where we can provide access to staff outside of the CRU as well in the future.
Sounds great. And we've obviously aiming towards all of our claims being on Zeus. How does Quantexa talk to Zeus?
Yeah, it's a really key principle that I think goes to the heart of most of our technology strategy, both in fraud and outside fraud. And that's that we need to get all of our data into one central pot. And Guidewire is the platform that allows us to achieve that. And the Zeus integration is really important because it means that, look, this is not a standalone, separate, shiny fraud detection tool. This is a fully integrated solution, which means we have real-time fraud detection and a two-way connection between Guidewire and Zeus. You go back to the example where you're making a claim, Scott. So you call up our claims team. The first thing they do is they put the information about your claim into Guidewire. They set up a claim. When that FNOR handler clicks save on that Guidewire claim, at that point, all of the information within seconds will be received by our Quantexa database. The network analysis will be done in real time and push a message back to the handler, so they can make a decision around, am I okay to pay, or do I need to delay payment and progression of the claim? And one of the things I'm really excited about is that with our current net reveal solution, for the handler, it's a bit of a kind of a black box solution. They never really understand what's going on behind the scenes, what's triggered in terms of scores. But with Quantexa, there will be visibility of the scores that have triggered within Guidewire. And that means for those cases where we've not got a really high kind of risk rating and the CIU aren't necessarily going to get involved, the handler actually has that risk insight in front of them. And that's really powerful, and that will empower our handlers to really think about the risks that claims pose, even if they aren't immediately highly concerning.
That sounds great. And you've heard a lot about data input and inputting fields into Zeus, and there's a saying, isn't there, rubbish data in, rubbish data out. What would your message be to claims handlers around the importance of data quality?
Yeah, I think there's a danger that at this point, handlers sort of turn off a little bit. Oh God, they're talking about data quality again. But there's nothing more important. And this goes to the heart of what we're trying to do with real-time decision-making, again, in and outside of fraud. If you have poor quality data, you can't do any of those exciting things that we want to do to rate risk, any of the exciting things that we want to do looking at kind of new technologies such as large language modeling. The data has to be in one place and it has to be of sufficient quality. So yes, it's kind of the boring side of the conversation, but let's look at another example, okay? So imagine in the claim that you made, the handler decided, actually, I'm not going to input Scott Clayton's address, or I'm going to leave his telephone number out of Guidewire. I'm not going to fill in that information about the circumstances of the claim. That might seem like a really small thing in the context of that handler managing hundreds and hundreds of claims for us every year. But imagine if it was the missing piece of information that would otherwise have allowed us to tackle a fraud ring or an organised fraud case. All it takes is one piece of information to be missing, such as the name of a storage yard, such as a telephone number that's been used to report the claim. And all of a sudden, we're relying on the human eye to spot things, and we're missing fraud. So I can't stress enough how important it is. And it's really important that this is not some sort of abstract concept that we're talking about. These are getting data quality right on the ground. Every claim will make a difference and will save our company money and our customers money.
Yeah, that sounds a really important message out there. So all of this sounds very impressive. I'm assuming it comes with, well, I know it actually comes with a big price tag, and there'll be big benefits associated with it. How much of a difference do you think it's going to make over and above what we're currently doing in the kind of data analytics space?
It's going to make a huge difference. And perhaps to answer this question, you need to kind of go back in time a little bit. If you go back in time to when we first launched our first net reveal solution, Scott, I think 2010, I still had hair. I think Rangers were still winning trophies.
There's no need for that.
And this was really our first journey into looking at a network analysis tool at a time when things like Crash for Cash were totally rampant and out of control, and we didn't have good front-end checks in place. We took a risk and we signed a contract with BAE, delivering the net reveal platform. And you'll remember, Scott, how exciting it was for the first time seeing us being able to join the dots, and the look on the faces of our fraudlanders when they realised, I knew that was a big network. And yes, of course it was. It was 50 claims, etc. We went from that initial delivery where we were just looking at retail risks over the years, subsequently adding commercial data in when the quality of the data was improved. And then only a couple of years ago, we were able to deliver our first real-time integration. And that was really transformative in that previously, our fraud detection solutions had been sort of isolated solutions that were good at finding fraud, but didn't do a huge amount to improve the customer journey. You've now got a situation where the objective of this project in delivering Quantexa is about two things. It's about actually improving fraud detection, and we talk about how we're going to do that in a second. But also improving the customer journey as well, making sure that we're more efficient in the work that we're picking up and we can manage it through more efficiently. Those twin objectives are really, really important for us. But in terms of why I believe this to be a significantly different and enhanced proposition from NetReveal is that we're doing a number of things better. First of all, we're using a whole range of next-gen technology in the actual architecture and the infrastructure of the system. That should mean that it's smarter and better equipped for the challenges of the future. It's more agile, so it's schemaless, which means what you can effectively do is say, well, beyond our initial delivery, if we've got other data sources we want to drop in, we can do that at relatively low cost. There's more data than we've ever seen before. So I mentioned earlier, we're looking at commercial property for the first time, but we're also using open corporates data. And that's a really exciting new source of data because it's a registry of around 10 million UK businesses and their directorships and information. So that in terms of building networks, that gives us real insight. The scoring's better. Real time itself is enhanced. I believe we're the first insurer that's ever been able to partner with someone to deliver what we consider true real time network analysis, and that means delivering the actual network analysis piece, building the networks in real time. That's really tricky, really clever stuff, and we're doing that as well. So, overall, NetReveal was capable of finding us about £1 million of fraud a month. With this delivery, we certainly within the first 12 months, we aim to hit £12 million of fraud detection, and we think we can grow from there. So there are some fantastic opportunities. And I think, Scott, just to add one point to this, is the initial delivery is exciting and is definitely a big step up for us. But think about where we can go with the actual partnership, and that's really exciting. The roadmap that Quantexa as a firm are working on is just incredibly ambitious. And I have to say, having spent a lot of time with Quantexa over the last 12 months, there's a huge amount of energy and positivity in terms of what they want to do. And this very much is seen to be, for them and for us, the starting point of a long-term partnership, which we think can reap some incredible rewards.
Yeah, it does sound hugely exciting, and with big numbers attached to it comes big pressure, and whether you and I will be sat here at the end of it remains to be seen, I suppose. So I suppose the $1 million question, when does it go live? When are we going to see Quantexa properly in action?
So we have UAT environments set up now. We're focused on optimizing scoring and the real-time integration. We have a 4-week UAT window in the end of July. We very much hope to be up and running live in September.
Brilliant. Fantastic. David, thank you so much for giving your insights today. We'll let you back into the cut and thrust of Project World and make sure you hit that go live date. So that brings us to the end of today's podcast. Thanks very much for listening. We hope that you found it useful, interesting, and that you can join us for our next episode of the Fraudcast Podcast. In the meantime, if there's any topic you'd like us to cover in any future episode, please let us know or leave a comment. Thank you very much for listening.